Thomas, and thank you for agreeing to this, in a way, crazy idea of a personal interview. I think I need to set up a little bit of a scene how we ended up here. So this summer I attended for the first time World of Words Literature Festival that was created by you. So when I attended the festival, I was very impressed by the level of authors, by the intimate atmosphere that you've created, which allows the authors, the readers, aspiring writers just to mingle around and exchange ideas. But then later on, when we were able to speak personally, and I found a little bit about of your personal story, that actually by background you're a lawyer, just like me, that you did quit the corporate world to pursue your lifelong dream to become a full-time writer. So that really hit me that, no, I really wanted to get to know more now of your personal motivation behind the festival, of shifting the careers and all of that, it comes together.
First of all, I want to say thank you, big thank you for taking the time to interview, and thank you for your interest. I'm flattered. I hope that I can provide some useful information that will be helpful to you or inspirational in some way.
So, if we may start from a question that you always ask the authors you interview at the stage, what brought you into this world of words?
Yes, the passion for reading and for books came from being read to at night by my father when I was a child, and then discovering first The Hobbit and then many other books from there. It was just a snowball.
You have quite an interest in education. So you have a bachelor degree in history, then Juris Doctor degree in law, and master's degree in journalism, all from Columbia University. Well, which one of these choices was truly yours, or all of them were really driven from you?
It's an interesting question. I can divide it quite clearly. So I wanted to be a writer from an early age. And
how early, if you can recall that?
I know exactly when. I was 13 years old.
What happened then?
And I announced to my parents, I said, I want to be a writer. Wow. That's what I want to do in my life. Wow. And like any good parent, my father just laughed and said, you're not going to become a writer. You can do that in your spare time if you want, but you're getting an education and a proper job that pays the bills. And obviously, you can't just become a writer at 16. You need someone to pay the bills. Exactly. And then you go to university. Yes, it was my choice of university, but I would have given full flexibility. I would have gone more into the creatives early on. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is that was very much my choice, Columbia Law School, and it was very much a learning experience, not just learning the law, but learning about yourself. Meanwhile, so distracted with the law and with getting a job and with having to pay bills that suddenly in the background writing had been set aside. Right. I was still reading a lot and liked it, but I had kind of put away this childhood dream and was just focused on doing really well.
And for how long did you put it aside? For all of this 15 years?
So here's yes and no. So what happened from there is I went to a law firm called Cravath, Swaine & Moore, which was the most prestigious and highest paid corporate law firm in the States. And that's why I did it. And that's the wrong reason to do something. You should do something because you like it, or at least you don't hate it. And for 3 years, I worked even harder than at law school. I mean, it was just brutal. Weekends, nights, you're at a friend's wedding on the weekend and you have to get out and go back to the office and they don't care. They're paying you so much money that they're like, you're basically our slave.
Right.
And the reality of it is the final straw was after 3 years, towards the end of 3 years, I was working on a deal, and I'll never forget the day. I had been sleeping in the office for 4 days. They had showers in the building. And I was sleeping there because the time it took, 20 minutes, to go from the office back to my house and back again, that was 40 minutes of lost sleep that I couldn't afford. So I'd just sleep under the desk, and a few other associates did. And the lady from Human Resources came to our office one day, and she said, it's come to our attention that many of you are sleeping at the office. And, we can't have this, we're going to have to find a solution. So we thought they're going to staff the deal with more lawyers, or they're going to, move the deals around or take on less deals or something because they don't have the manpower. And instead she said with a totally straight face, because we're looking into the problem, and for the moment we've bought yoga mats, so you'll be more comfortable. And I was like, goodbye.
Wow.
There's not enough money in the world to pay me to do this.
Wow.
So again, you know, I was in an in-between period, and that's the third academic experience I had, which was also at Columbia. Columbia Journalism School, as you know, is where the Pulitzer Prize
Yes.
is awarded. It's quite a difficult degree to get into. And I was sitting in the office miserable, thinking, how do I get out of this job and what do I do next? And I put in an application that was like the basic application. Like, no, I couldn't spend a lot of time and effort on it, to Columbia Journalism School. And I thought, if I get in to such a tough degree, then it's a sign. And I got in. And I just packed up and went to journalism school. It was a 1-year program, great learning experience, lots of writing experience, but not fiction. I'm aware, Diana, that you were not expecting such a long answer, but
No, but
that's
it answers
the
a lot
3
of
parts.
questions. It's amazing. But and so you went back to the school to do this incredible degree in journalism. Don't tell me you went back to the corporate world.
I'm afraid so.
Oh,
I'm afraid
no.
so. The dark side has pulled me back in. So you asked earlier how long I put writing aside
Exactly.
for. I put it aside basically until I was always scribbling notes and short stories, but nothing serious. I put it aside until journalism school, which was obviously writing, but a different type of writing. And then I tried writing for publication some short stories. And I tried getting jobs as a freelance journalist, and that wasn't working, and it wasn't paying the bills. And so I went back to corporate law and worked at a different law firm for a few years.
Still in New York.
No, by this time I had moved to London and qualified as a UK lawyer as well.
And how many more years then it took you in this corporate world after the journalism school, back to the corporate?
So it took I did that for a few years, and then you'll forgive me if my timeline is a little bit off,
No,
but
fine.
it's a few years. I did the second law firm I was at. Then I left to try and set up an online journalism program. That was not program. A news site. It was called the Periscope Post. The idea was, instead of preaching to one's own choir, like a Fox News is always going to go to the right and a CNN is going to be more left, I thought, what if you do a summary of each day's headlines, saying this is what the Guardian says, this is what the Times says, this is what Fox says, and small digests.
And you launched it online.
And I launched it online, but again, that didn't pay the bills. We didn't get enough advertising. I think I was ahead of my time, which is not a compliment to myself. It's just I misread the timing. The market wasn't ready for it. The technology wasn't there, and again I had to go back and pay the bills. And then I went back to a third law firm. I was quite senior by then. I was well paid. I was saving up money, and after about 4 years there, it was right about when the Brexit referendum happened in the UK. Maybe some of your viewers or you will remember what year it was, but that was the year. And I just remember sitting in my office in London. I never really liked London as a city for personal reasons, nothing wrong with London. And the news came over that no one was really expecting.
No.
It was one of the stupidest decisions the United Kingdom ever made. It was made on a political gamble by David Cameron, which was, anyway, we won't get into politics. But when the news came out that they'd voted Brexit, something twigged. And I said, you know what? I'm in a city I don't want to be in. I'm doing a job I don't want to do. And these nutcases have just thrown themselves back into the Stone Ages. And it's, it's like a lot of people say about passion or career. It's, you got to be careful. You got to always hold on to those dreams and don't let them get drowned in the real world, if that is your passion. And I let them get drowned. And so the way I like to describe it is that I always wanted to be a writer, and I always wanted to be in the world of literature in some capacity or other. And I wanted to since the age of 13. And then one fine day, you wake up and you're like, I'm 40 years old doing a job I don't want to do in a place I don't want to do it. What happened to the dream? Wow. So I had saved enough money and I had moved and I had a house here, family house in Gstaad. And so I sold my apartment and moved here and started writing.
Wow, that's like a huge shift and a turning point. In screenwriting, they say there is a plot point. It's a point after which there is no return, and it's something which dramatically changes the character and his life, like no back.
The plot point was selling my apartment in London and moving to Gstaad, because it was not just if you use the example of it being a book, it was not just the protagonist's mindset that changed, but it was also physical move. You've sold your home, and so you're in a different place. Yeah, that was the plot point. That was when I thought, look, that's it, you're not going back.
But it's a huge shift. I mean,
Yeah.
from the corporate and from the buzzing world of London, which is, deals, wealth, money, and it's a completely different world. And then you land here in Gstaad, in sun and land, where there are cows, bells going around, and it's like completely different universe. So that's one. And then second, from the well-paid corporate lawyer in a reputable law firm to a writer. How did you digest all of those changes?
I think I'm still digesting them to some extent. It's funny when you describe certain things in very simplistic terms, you can make them sound different. So sometimes I look at it and I think, so just to be clear, you left a highly paid corporate law job in a major metropolis to become an unpaid author who hasn't published his first book yet and runs a non-profit literature festival in a village with a population of 7,500, including the 500 cows.
That sounds funny when you put it this way, but
it worked. It worked. It worked.
What matters? Did it make you more happy?
Absolutely, it did. There's always a balance. I don't believe in life there is such an absolute thing as happy or happiness. I think we can aspire to contentedness and to treasuring the happy moments and making sure that the happy moments outweigh the unhappy moments that are within our control.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I ever made. I'd like to get that first book published.
If I may ask, what are you working on and what's your feeling about it?
I'm about three-quarters of the way. Wow. I'm about three-quarters of the way through my first novel. It's called Wild Boar. It's the story of an American criminal defense lawyer.
Here we go. Here we go. I was waiting for that term.
Who buys a holiday home in the south of France that represents the ultimate symbolism of his success, coming from a rough, bad background and having finally made good and succeeded. The story is a legal thriller about a winemaker, a murder, a trial, and the wild boar that connects them all. So
that's the mystery now.
That's the mystery.
They say that to be a good lawyer, you have to be a good storyteller. And the more compelling and convincing your story, the better lawyer you are. So then you win. So it seems, who knows, that maybe all of these years in your corporate legal career were just the preparation of the first book you're about to finish now, which is about a litigator or a lawyer. So somehow it could be still intertwined, don't you think so?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, you're a lawyer yourself. To a lesser extent in corporate law, but even in corporate law to some extent, more in litigation, law is pure storytelling.
Absolutely. I think, all life is a storytelling because we are composed of the stories we tell ourselves in our heads about ourselves, about the world around us, about the other people. And, it's to the extent we are good storytellers about storytellers, that's if we have a good or bad line, maybe, perhaps. And this is the power of reframing things, because are you a victim, or are you a winner, or are you a hero, or who are you? That's just the word, but it can define the whole worldview.
Absolutely.
And in that way, I think we as lawyers, initially, could be more lucky because we have some sort of education and training in understanding the power of the words. But of course, the upper and the higher level, that's where you are now, ultimately, is the writer who is a craftsman of the written word.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the power of the words you learn as a lawyer, the structure, and then you just have to put an overlay of beauty, let's say, of creativity. So it's not just the structure. And then you can just find a nice way of telling the story, not just telling the story. For sure, for sure.
Yeah. So then we can come to that next big point, how we met. Wow, World of Words. I love the name, by the way. How did that come into life?
So that came about around a year into my move to Switzerland, and it came about very, very simply. I was writing short stories. So the novel I'm working on now, I've been working on for a year. I never thought I'd write a novel. I was always more interested in short stories, until I got this idea that sort of landed like a little tidily packaged idea that just hit me a year ago. But before that, I was writing short stories, and I was very self-conscious about being some guy who's just, sitting in a mountain village saying he's a writer, and well, what have you written? Oh, I'm working on something. What have you finished? Well, nothing much. And well, have you been published? Can I read something of yours? Well, no. So it's not a good look, and it didn't feel good. It was a bit too disjointed. So I thought, look, it's going to take a while. As you correctly said, Diana, it's switching from corporate to creative is a huge mind shift, mainly because you lose the structure and the tangible goals. When you're a lawyer, you know when you've done well.
You have to build the time, right?
But you know when you've done well.
Right.
Did you win the case or not? Did you get a bonus from your boss or not?
Yeah.
Am I doing well? Well, I can see if I'm doing well. When you're writing, you can finish something and love it, and then you go back and edit it the next day, and you think, God, what was I thinking? I mean, I'm so crap. I really shouldn't be doing this. And it's very
Draining,
solitary.
yeah.
And there are very few guidelines until you first get published. In that case, you say, oh, I got an agent, or I got an editor, or I got published, and then eventually I became bestseller or so. Those you got milestones. But as a starting writer, you got no structure. And I just thought, I don't want to be that guy that's kind of drifting around saying I'm doing a bit of this and a bit of that. I said, how can I give back something to the community? And how can I do something where it's tangible, you've done something, you've added value to society, you've added value to the dialogue, to this, one of the most important conversations of modern humanity is happening now. I thought, well, look, at least if I haven't published yet, let me have created something, and something that helps. It helps the conversation, that helps the community.
Other writers, those who aspire
Helps
to
other
be
writers,
readers.
kids who want to become writers. And so I had this idea to do a book festival, and that's how World of Words came about. I chose the name because obviously World of Words is relevant to its subject, but also because WoW works in every language. It means the same thing in French and English and German, and people say it a lot. And I wanted just to bring interesting minds together and have a tangible activity. Storytelling is actually one of the only things that differentiates humans from any other animals on the planet. When an animal goes and kills another animal for feeding, it doesn't document it. It kills and it eats and it moves on. It goes to sleep. If you think about the caveman times, the Stone Age era, caveman would go and kill an animal for food and then tell someone about it by drawing it. It's true. I mean, what else is cave drawings, right? It's telling a story. It's saying, look, I just killed this bear. Look how cool I am.
Or how sorry I am.
Or how sorry I am, or whatever it is.
Right.
So I just think it's in our DNA. We're all storytellers. We are all storytellers. The only difference between writers and the rest is that writers do it more and as a profession.
But that's exactly what I was thinking about when preparing for this interview, that it is such an essential tool nowadays. To produce a good story about yourself or your life experience, you have to reflect and comprehend. That's that self-awareness, and that's, what's the outcome you want to put out there, project into the world. And I think that nowadays, unless we are good in the storytelling, we are not fully living our own life. We are living someone else's story that can be projected on us. Oh, you're a corporate lawyer, so you're that. Or you're a writer, so you're careless or unresponsible or whatever, you are that. So there are these cliches. And I think this is also why festivals like yours are very important, because it reminds us about the power of words. And unless you become master of your own words and your own perceptions, you are in a way trapped in someone else's stories.
Absolutely. I feel we are doing a good job of it. The original inspiration for World of Words' current structure, which, as you said at the beginning, is very different from most literature festivals, because it's deliberately small. It involves organized walks by the riverside. It involves meals. The authors are attending those events, so attendees get a chance to ask questions, to interact with each other, with the other authors, and also the topics are very different. The vast majority of literature festivals, it's the author comes up, talks about his or her book, and maybe some slightly related topics, signs books, and goes away. Our topics, and everyone can see them on the website or on YouTube, all the recordings of the last 5 years, the topics are much broader.
Yeah.
It's more like, what's the role of literature? Or why is it important to have fiction? All of these topics. So could we do more? Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're trying to do. So it's our 5th year. It's gone really well. We've grown. But our growth so far has been organic. Many people would argue, whether it's a business or a festival or a non-profit, organic growth is better and more sustainable than fast growth. Now, what kind of growth I'm referring to is I would like to have a higher number and a broader range of attendees. And that's just a matter of getting well known. I mean, we've saturated the Gstaad market and the people who know Gstaad already. We've now, thankfully, expanded. People like yourself, for example, who came to it with no prior connection.
A story in Instagram which drew my attention.
Yes. Exactly, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And so, we're at I guess we're probably across the various talks and the lunches, because you can sign up for whichever one you want. But if you average it out, I'd say that we're probably at around 80, 90 attendees, a bit higher for some talks, a bit lower for some. I would love us to get to closer to 250.
Double? Mm-hmm.
Not more. And 250 including the authors and the board and the people involved, because then you still have that intimacy. But I'd like to spread the word, because if the whole point is promoting the discourse, then you need more ears and more spreading the word.
You touched briefly upon earlier the importance of literature specifically today, and I don't want to dramatize it too much, but I'm originally Ukrainian, so there is war in my country. We are, many people say, at the verge of the break of the Third World War. The US is going nuts, and there is so many things happening in the today's world where we are overwhelmed, we are scared, as human beings. So what is there you think literature can offer for such a chaotic world we're living today?
So literature is not going to feed refugees. Literature is not going to salve the wounds, emotional and physical, of people who are going through war, who are going through trauma, to the extent of what you're describing. Mm-hmm. So I just want to start by saying I don't have some idealistic view of it. That said, literature, and especially fiction, is not a nicer word, but more accurate word for what I'm thinking of, because sometimes people have the misconception of literature as being something very academic or esoteric. It's not. So any fiction, it has an incredibly powerful role in exactly the situations that you have described. To give you concrete examples, I think fiction teaches empathy. So let's start at the political and the military level. If you've been exposed to stories about people who are other than yourself,
Yeah.
or who are in different nations, I do honestly believe that whether it's conscious or subconscious, you can relate to your enemy, or you can relate to the foreigner more.
Well, I think it can also share the meaning and reflections of the people who were in similar circumstances before you. For example, when I read the memoirs of Stefan Zweig, who was Austrian, who lost his homeland when it was first destroyed in the First World War and then invaded by Nazis. So he was reflecting on how these events of the war breaking into your country really shake you, but also shape you. And so, we forgot all of those experiences because it's been a peaceful few decades in our human history, relatively, when we live in Europe. But then, when the war broke in Ukraine, and then you just shocked, and suddenly you find a book, memoir, so it's very honest and it's very reflective, of somebody who've lived exactly through the events that you think nobody else understands right now how you feel. And that indeed, it's not only the empathy in the sense that you understand the other, you feel like somebody else understood you because they've been in your shoes.
Yes, exactly. Relatability.
Exactly.
And fiction is also another way of telling the stories and experiences like the one you just described in a more accessible way. So we always hear about saying not repeating history and be aware of the past and not repeat it. But, there's the history books, which are, of course, crucial. There's the documented experiences. But if it's told as a story, again, it can be more emotive.
For sure. And then brings me to the next question about the future of the literary world in the era of AI. I know you've written a nice article you published on the website about your personal usage of AI. So it's quite interesting. As a writer, you do use it to a certain extent, but then do you think that you as a writer will be at a certain point in the future out of the job because of the AI?
I honestly believe that the two can coexist. We're going through an incredible period of transition. It's very fashionable to talk about artificial intelligence. The discourse is very binary at the moment. It's very all or nothing. My own view on it is that artificial intelligence is not there yet when it comes to literary creativity.
Okay.
If you ask an artificial intelligence platform to write a story in a certain style, if for a reader who reads a lot or who likes reading, enjoys reading, I think most would agree that it would sound, however impressive it is for a computer, which it is, it would sound a little stilted, a little bit too stiff. You could feel like maybe it was like, the example I gave of a few of these stories that I've read that were written entirely by AI is it reads very much like a very, very accomplished senior high school student, right? It's not quite there. It's like, yeah, great, but
what is missing? A soul, a spirit?
It's not even anything so mystical as that. It's just too formulaic. It's too stilted. It's set phrases that you can sense that this is something that was cobbled together. There's an extremely important conversation going on right now, and that has in fact become a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit against various artificial intelligence platforms who have been feeding the large language model with novels as a way of teaching it. Obviously, we all know that artificial intelligence is becoming artificial intelligence by having trillions and trillions of whatever the right term is of data being put into it so that it can learn. And one of the companies, I forget which one it was, one of the big ones, I think it's Meta, was feeding its large language model artificial intelligence platforms with novels like these ones that you see on the book of just any authors. And the authors, it came to their attention that this was happening, and they said, well, this is intellectual property appropriation. You can't use my words to teach someone else. You have to license it if you want to use it or get authorization. It's copyrighted. Just because it's in a computer doesn't make it any less so. So that's a conversation that's going to be going on. When I say coexisting, I think, yeah, I think, let's be honest, artificial intelligence will become in some way a part of literature, but in my honest opinion, it will never replace it. There will always be a need for humans, the human interpretation of it, for a human element to the writing of fiction. You may wonder what I mean by coexistence and how writing will integrate artificial intelligence. Is, for something like, it's actually not that. It's like a very, very sophisticated copy editor or a line editor which has existed from forever. So it's not really writing, but it's a very useful tool to say, check for grammar or check for consistency with whatever the parameters are. I think it's also very helpful for researching. In my own book, I've learnt, or I am learning, that it's so important not to self-edit as you're writing a first draft, and slow down, and just, you got to get as the author DBC Pierre said at the Gstaad recently, it said, make it exist. Exactly. And then make it right.
And the first draft is always shit.
And the first draft is always shit. Or another great phrase about the first draft that I learned from an author called Sarah May is self-editing during a first draft is like going on a first date and bringing your mother. It kills the intimacy.
Exactly.
So I'm not digressing. The contents of what I'm saying is a lot of times if you're writing fiction, or let's just stick with Wild Boar, with my book, there are a lot of parts of it that have to be real. So it is 100% fiction, it's a legal thriller, but you have to write about the habits of a wild boar in the south of France and the possible damage it could do to somebody, a human, why it would fight, why it wouldn't, so that it becomes realistic fiction. And artificial intelligence is great for that, because instead of stopping and doing your research, so you get to the point in the story where you're like, okay, I need to know the habits of these animals, or I need to check what the legal system in France is like so that it can sound realistic, and then you do your research and you can go straight into any kind of artificial intelligence platform and just say, what are the basic habits, or is it realistic that the defendant would have the right to object in a French court, or is that only in the US courts? And so then you have enough just to keep writing, and it'll take you to the finish. So that's what you might use artificial intelligence for. And then you go back and tidy it, because one of the big flaws of the current stage of artificial intelligence now is that it delivers answers with such confidence that people who are perhaps not curious enough or not challenging enough take it as true, and a lot of it is
hallucination.
False.
Yeah, it never existed. That's true. But if I may flip this question around, we spoke from the writer's perspective, and you seem to be, I would say, a glass half full in your judgment. From the reader's perspective, though, I personally observe that with the in the era of fast dopamine consumption, scrolling through, getting the fast answers, I am getting more lazy, in my research and my work, but I can imagine that it can also affect your reading habits, because you need to pick up a book, you need to pay for it, you need to read 300 pages to get to the answer of the plot, of the whole mystery story, who killed the wild boar, or other way around. But now, with a quick question, you can get a summary, and it summarizes perfectly. Wouldn't it kill all the buzz for reading, in your view, for the reader?
It's like saying why would you go to the cinema when you could just watch it at home on your laptop? It's an experience. You may like it or not like it, but you go and sit down in a comfy chair in a shared space with a big screen. You've got popcorn or a hot dog or whatever you have. It's a whole experience, and that's, I think, what reading is. I could not agree more with you that attention span is shortening. People will think of reading a book as more of a challenge, but I'm still optimistic. I notice it just in anecdotal stuff, and for you or for anybody who's viewing this, think about this. Next time you're on a train, or next time you're on a plane, or in an airport, just keep your eyes open at the crowds around you, and you might be pleasantly surprised to see that there are actually quite a few people still holding books in their hands, and they're not ancient people. It's everyone from kids to... There's a sort of tactile aspect to it that keeps it alive. And Gstaad is about reminding people of that. And I'll give you one other anecdote to answer your question, is the short attention span, in a way, it's forcing writers to write differently. A very well-known French author who came to speak at World of Words a few years ago, called Frédéric Beigbeder, who wrote a number of bestsellers, and one of his most recent books was called Barrage contre l'Atlantique, and the physical format is, on each page, there's one full page, for example, and then the next one has just 2 lines on the whole page. The rest is blank. Then there's a paragraph with a big gap. And I said to him, what's this all about? Some kind of gimmick. And he said, look, my daughter's 22 years old, and she told me she has never read a single one of my books from start to finish, however bestseller they were. And she said, I don't like reading, it's not enough. And what he told her, and what I would tell you, or repeat to you, because I learned it through him, everybody's reading all day long. It's just in a different format. So yeah, you're scrolling, but you know how many words are actually passing under your eyes? Everybody who's going through, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, okay, TikTok less because it's an acting one, but whether it's jokes, whether it's summaries, whether it's anything, you're actually reading a lot. It's just in a different format. So he said he wanted to do it in a format that was just little snippets. And he said it was the first time his daughter had read the whole book.
So it worked.
In one example, it worked. And the other thing I would say is, the amount of people who have told me since I've started World of Words, who say, and it's the classic phrase, I should read more.
Oh, yeah.
But it's kind of heavy going. And I always stop people with this phrase. And I say, you should not read more. You should read what's good and what you like. And just remember, if you pick up a book and you get bored of it after 10 pages, it's the author's fault. It's my fault if you don't like my book. We are there to entertain you, to be the storytellers, which is where this interview started. We're storytellers, and if the story is crap, then it's my fault, not yours.
This is a perfect transition to the question which is really close to my heart. So you already, about the craft, the talent and the craft and the labor of the author, you already mentioned DBC Pierre. For me, he was one of the highlights of this summer event.
For many people.
Exactly, so we can't agree more on that. And so what impressed me during his interview at WOW this summer.
And maybe for the viewers' benefit also, that DBC Pierre was the author of the book, Vernon God Little.
Yes, and Release the Bats and many, many others, which are great. So the one which impressed me, what he shared about at the stage was Release the Bats, about what it takes to be an author. And so he said, what struck me, I started writing when I had nothing else to lose. That's a very powerful statement. And also in Release the Bats, he writes, all that we appear to be is cover for a deeper, sometimes opposite truth. Uncover it in writing. So we are all, in a way, pretentious. We're all the masks and the roles and the names and the titles. But that's the opposite of the truth, what's deeper inside of you and me and every one of us. And so his message is, uncover the truth through writing, which brings me to the conclusion that it is really essential to be honest and vulnerable to produce something meaningful which will touch someone else's truth. How do you feel about that?
First of all, just to reiterate on DBC Pierre's comments, which I commend to anybody, it's on the website. It's not just about how to be an author. He's a philosopher in a way, as you notice and as you point out. One of the other phrases, which I love, that can apply to writers or not writers, is when he said, if you cross the threshold, the world will be behind you. Mm-hmm. And that could apply to anyone, and that's truly inspirational. Mm-hmm. And after he said he was writing just because he had nothing else to lose, he was desperate. He also used another beautiful phrase, which was, he said, I decided to scratch the clouds out of the sky or die trying. So it is a very emotive and exposing activity, in answer to your question. I feel I don't believe in the anguished author and suffering and trauma being necessary to create fiction. I'm absolutely not a believer of that. I think it's a dated concept, and it's sort of become a cliche that's an untrue one. It is, however, hugely explosive. You open up your soul, even if it's total fiction, to the readers, to the critics. If it's something more on the lines of, something that is not so personal, the story happens to be something like science fiction or something totally different, you're still putting your words out there and saying, God, I hope I get applause.
It is all personal at the end, because you process it through your own lens. So whatever comes out is personal. Nietzsche, who by the way lived in Switzerland, wrote in Switzerland, and who also wrote Thus Spoke Zarathustra also in Switzerland. So he said, along those lines, for believe me, the secret for harvesting from existence the greatest fruitfulness and greatest enjoyment is to live dangerously.
Yes.
So, in my view, that's to a certain extent what you've been doing, with your shifting careers and changing the cities you live in and the whole lifestyle and risking it quite a lot. I can only applaud your courage.
Well, you're very kind. I had a lot of advantages having, built a financial base and a career. But yes, thank you. It is a little dangerously, and also Nietzsche's phrase, I think, is open to interpretation. I don't think live dangerously necessarily means skydiving without a parachute, but exposing yourself and to criticism, to all of these things, and also just, I think it's human nature to want to succeed at what you like doing and what you're doing, and it can be very painful. I think every single author I've spoken to, and I now know a lot more authors as a result of having started, because I didn't even know anybody who'd written a book when I started as a writer. I wasn't in that world. I was just pure corporate. I knew nobody. And I just was the odd one out. I felt like in the wrong place. But now I've got to know these authors, and it sounds like something we've all heard a million times, but I promise you it's true. Every single author, maybe one exception, so to correct myself, has said they got rejected by all the agents when they tried to get representation, or they got an agent and all the publishing houses rejected them many, many, many times before becoming a success. It takes a lot of emotional beating. I'm already prepping myself for when I finish the book to sit there knocking on the doors waiting for someone to take me on, because a lot of people, thank goodness, are still reading. Like, you go to, this is a very unique setting where we are now, this beautiful bookshop, but if you go to a big bookshop in a big city like Hatchard's in London, which is a great one, or to Payot in Geneva, and just look at the vast quantity of books there are, even if you just limit it to the new releases, what does that tell you? It tells you that people still write, and people are still willing to expose themselves, and it means that people are still publishing, and I think we're on a good road. We're just in a very, very precarious moment of it, where it could tip away from the joys of reading, and I think it's important to remind people how much we can learn from fiction, from storytelling.
On that optimistic note, well, let's just thank you for your time and for your passion for reading, for writing, for creating the space for other writers like yourself, aspiring readers or readers who want to become writers, to have the support system. Because in a way, what my impression was when I entered the room of wow, is I finally fit in. And that's an immense feeling of normalizing your aspirations, which would not necessarily fit in one or another box. And
I love that phrase, normalizing your aspirations.
Continue
and
creating.
to find kindred spirits, as you did as well. And thank you very much for the time, and thank you for coming all the way up to the little village of Gstaad.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so
much.
much.